Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to BiblioTech On Air. I'm Rosanna.
I'm Lewis.
And today we have a special guest with us. Today we have Gume Laurel III. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
A Texas-born author from the Rio Grande Valley whose work center around Latina, Chicanx, and queer voices. We have 3 of his novels in our collection, including his latest high-low verse novel, Solar Punks, available now on Hoopla. So once again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So real quick, we did talk about it before we started recording, but Louis mentioned what high-low, asking what high-low means in regards to novels. Do you think you could explain that to us again?
Sure. So high-low, it stands for high interest, low readability, meaning that the high interest part, it's going to be of interest to the target audience. So for example, mine are young adults. So the age range for those are teens and adults. So it's going to be subject matter that's interesting to them. But the low readability part, that's where it comes in, where it explains that it's written at technically a 1st or 2nd grade reading level. So it makes the book more accessible to teens and adults who have a harder time reading, whether they're reluctant readers for whatever reason. And so they're able to read something and understand it versus them having to read a children's book that's not really going to be appealing to them.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So like a lot of like ESL classrooms use these books, just different classroom settings. They're intended for the classroom.
Mm.
Nice. Thank you for doing that. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
And if we want to get right into the set of questions we have ready. So you grew up in the Rio Grande Valley, and we just want to know how those kind of experiences growing up affected your, early life, but also you developing into the writer, the poet that you are today.
So it's really funny because it's something that I didn't really realize until the last probably 10, 15 years is how much growing up in a border town affects you, or how much it really cultivates your character. It's something that I never really thought about until I moved away when I was like 19, 20, I moved away from the Valley, and I was gone for several years. And then when I would come back, and friends that weren't from the Valley, they would visit with me, and they would be confused. They're like, what do you mean Mexico is like 5 minutes away from where we're at? I'm like, yeah, they're like, that's a whole other country. I'm like, so, and it's just so interesting because it was something I had never really realized, just living in a place on the edge of 2 different worlds, and how those worlds create its own little bubble, its own little reality where they mesh. And so that intersectionality just becoming like a natural identity and just a natural experience. And so that really just goes into my writing with all of these characters with their intersectional identities.
Very nice. Very nice. And we're going to get into it a little bit later, but I had just recently read Solar Punks, your newest one, and it really does come out a little bit that kind of that pull between like 2 different worlds and like 2 different like ways of living. And I think that's like, it's evident that you have experience with that whenever you put it into your writing like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So speaking of intersectionality, as a queer Latinx author, how do you stay connected to those identities, and what influences your writing?
I think that it's something that is hard to disconnect from, just because it's like who I am as a person. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting because something I heard, I believe it was Irene Lara Silva, a former Texas State Poet Laureate. She had said one time, the river is something that we carry in us, as those of us from the border, because that's where, the river and just that fluidity, where 2 worlds kind of like collide and come together. And it's just something that is in me, I feel like. So it's naturally, like how I just said a moment ago, it's just that intersectionality is just going to naturally come out just because that's like within me, holding these 2 different worlds that even at times feel like they conflict, but at the same time they complement each other in a way that brings them together and makes them whole, which becomes me.
Yeah.
And we see that, like you mentioned, Louis, very evident in your writing.
Yeah.
It's the very theme of like 2 different worlds just kind of carries over.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like it always is just coming from the background that you do. It's always nice to kind of put yourself into the writing, because you never know who's going to like pick it up, especially with younger audiences. You never know who's going to pick it up and feel seen,
right?
And it's nice to be better or worse now, but like it's better to have like that kind of representation being given, like being accessible to younger audiences so early, just so they can know that they're not alone in their experiences. Like if they're growing up queer, if they're growing up like between two worlds culturally, I think it's like it's so nice to know that like there are books like yours and there are books like kind of striving to make that sort of thing more normalized. Yeah.
I appreciate that. And it's funny because it was never something that I necessarily intended with the two different worlds. It just naturally happens on its own through my storytelling, I think, because that's just like in me. So it's going to surface whether I realize it or intend for it to.
Yeah. Within your career as like a writer and poet now, are there any challenges that you faced either like kind of starting out or like currently? Is there anything that is like has been kind of a particular obstacle within that career field?
I think it's becoming, I feel like opportunities are like that were there maybe in years past aren't there anymore, just as legislation, just different things are being passed in the state of Texas. So it's becoming a little bit more difficult. Even something as simple as donating books to, before I would have been able to just give my book to a public library or a public school where I grew up. And now that's not necessarily something that they're able to just quickly put on the shelf now that there's so many processes that go with it, just so that they can cover their bases. So there are definitely challenges that were not there a decade ago, and it's just stupid politics.
Yeah.
I mean, with the book bans going on, and then even like publishers who are less willing to take those risks for, more people of color authors, queer authors. Like you mentioned, those opportunities are getting smaller. And you kind of see that, like when you go to the front of a bookstore or something, some of the books that you see, they all have the same cover. And again, not to judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
It's becoming kind of evident.
Right. No, and it's interesting too because so I don't know if you're familiar with like the way that a lot of agents that will take on books, they'll post on social media or they'll post on their website like the kind of books that they're looking for, and it's become very commonplace. You'll see BIPOC stories, own voices, queer stories, but that's been more evident in their lists for the last couple of years. But somebody's been tracking to see, like, okay, yes, it's increasing on how much they're claiming the demand is, but how many books are they actually like selling that are those, or is it just like all up front? So it's interesting. There's going to be a lot of data that I think will develop out of all of the stuff that's happening right now. So I'm interested to see that, but I definitely agree with what you're saying.
That clout.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like so many, like any, like stories that either focus on, like people of a minority identity, of a minority group, and or whenever the author is part of those, I feel like they ask for like, hey, we need more stories by queer authors, we need more stories by BIPOC authors. But I feel like those same stories are put under so much more scrutiny because of the fact that they, for better or worse, are just like, okay, well, we have to make sure that like everything that goes out is like up to a certain standard because we don't want people like freaking out. We don't want people like not wanting to get anything that we publish anymore.
Like the backlash.
Yeah. Right. It's, I'm not sure if you've experienced like that sort of like pushback from the publishers before, but it's just, I feel like those sorts of stories, even on a social media scale, on like an advertising scale, can be so heavily scrutinized because of where they come from, I've been super lucky. My editor and my publisher, West 44 Books, they're really embracing. So I haven't had any pushback from them. I've never had to deal with a lot what I've seen other authors like deal with as far as like not getting the support or being like how you said, they have to be so much more perfect than their white counterparts. Yeah.
So I've been lucky in that regard.
Yeah, that's wonderful that they are so embracing.
Yeah. Hopefully it stays like that.
For real.
Because it's definitely a shift that we can feel.
And I've asked them too, because one of the things that's up on the board within the state of Texas that every book would have to have like a certain rating. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So, but they would basically, you would have to rate librarians or teachers, whoever wherever the books are at, they'd have to have ratings for the books if the publishers don't give them. And the rating being like if it's sexually explicit, if it mentions the word queer, if there's a gay character, suddenly it's, they consider it. Yeah. Suddenly it's sexually explicit, which is ridiculous, but that's what they're trying to push. And so like, I've even brought that up with my publisher. I'm like, hey, they're wanting to do this down here. And they've like assured me that they're not going to, that they're part of, the group of publishers that are just not going to do it.
That's good. We could easily go on a tangent about that right now, but save our listeners the trouble.
2 hours later.
So anyway, thanks for joining us. So getting into social media, because that is how we discovered you. You definitely have a strong presence there, especially on your Instagram. You constantly connect with your readers, share your work. We see videos and book trailers, like Solar Punks and your upcoming release, The Final Diadem. How does that platform play a role in marketing your name and your books? And do you enjoy that side of being an author, or do you feel it start to become overwhelming at some point?
So it's funny because I love video editing and I love like storytelling. And it's as an adult now, I'm like, when I was younger and then I was an adult, I'm like, okay, writing is the medium for how I want to tell my stories. But I also just really enjoy Canva. Canva's a lot of fun. And so I didn't even realize it until about a year or two ago that it has all the B-roll footage and all of the free use, like audios. And I was like, wait, what? Like, I don't, I can just like, yes, it was like $20 a month. This is amazing. And so I've leaned into that. I really enjoy that kind of aspect of being able to expand the story. So for example, with the current book that I'm promoting right now, it's The Final Diadem. A kid goes to summer camp. There he meets other campers who tell him they've been looking for him for centuries because they're all reincarnated superheroes from the planet Mars.
Oh, that's so cool.
And so with that, I'm like, he's summer camp. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to lean into that. So like all my promotion has been there. Camp Juniper is the name of the camp. So it's like, Camp Juniper, you need to go. I started posting it as if it was an actual place. And the thing is, at the end, it says, my publisher's name, and there's like little like weird clips to show like there's something more going on. But it's funny because a lot of people thought it was an actual camp. And so people were like, hey, like messaging me. They thought I was doing like a writer's workshop or like a writer.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So that, which
it really took on a life of its own.
It did. Yes. And so I had random people like from, because it takes place in the Big Bend area. So I randomly started getting all these follows from Big Bend area people. I'm like, what is going on? So there might be a Camp Juniper like in the future.
I just reached a new demographic.
Right. Yeah.
The hikers.
Yeah.
The campers.
And it's been fun because they have a lot in the camp. They have different, like they have a DNA kit that's part of the story. They have like these smart watches that's part of the story. So all these different aspects. So I've been just able to create media for those and to expand it and to show like how this book is actually connected to Solar Punks and it's connected to future books coming out. So they're all starting to merge into one story over a long timeline.
Ooh. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You had brought us some of like the a few of like the postcard for Camp Juniper, like stuff like that. Like and to be honest, because I was not familiar with The Final Diadem or it's marketing thus far. I was just like, oh, is this a real camp? For like a second.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah. And now I know. But I really do. I've always appreciated that kind of like advertising, that kind of marketing sort of thing where it is very much like you are so invested in the world that you are creating that you are like, if this was a real thing, what would promotional material for the camp look like? And just like being able to kind of like exercise your creativity, but also still keep it within like the world that you're creating. I've always loved stuff like that, kind of like the ARG, like more like meta sort of.
Exactly.
Like I'm all about that. So that's super cool.
Yeah, and it's fun because then you get to expand like what else would there be, and then other people. So I had 3 friends from Bookstagram. People I don't know in real life, but they're friends through like the book community online on Instagram, and we each recorded ourselves like a video submission to go to camp. And then the next week we did videos where it's like, oh, we were accepted. We had like goodie boxes from the camp, but it was just random stuff we collected around our apartments.
That's so, I was just thinking about that, like the reciprocity, like when your readers finally get to check this out and then maybe post their own videos and tag you.
Well, that's what happened. I was like, oh my, because they started messaging me. They're like, oh my gosh, people think it's real. Like they're asking like how to apply and stuff. I'm like, send them the NetGalley link. And so, but yeah, other people who I was not even connected with posted videos like of their video submission to Camp Juniper, or in the comments they're like, yeah, I can't wait to go, blah, blah, blah. So it's exciting because it builds momentum and this like fun around reading that I think that a lot of people, especially in book, whether it's Bookstagram or Book Talk, I feel like a lot of it becomes a chore because everybody's trying to read the next thing that everybody's reading, or everybody's trying to keep up. But it's like you have your life, you have so much else going on that it becomes difficult, and it becomes like a contest, a measuring contest between everybody who can read the most or like keep up the quickest. And so just adding a level of like fun, like let's just enjoy reading.
Yeah.
That's such a good point you bring up about like, you know, everyone trying to read the latest thing or just trying to be like, oh, well, I read 50,000 books last year. You know,
Right.
it can be a little intimidating, a little daunting, because unintentionally you might be comparing yourself to these readers, whether you want to or not. So keeping it fun like that, it's such a nice break from like the constant inundation of just, you know, bestseller, number one, bestseller. Read this book. I'm obsessed with it. The series.
Yeah.
You know?
So 3 fandoms that you could be a part of are all releasing things on the exact same day, and you got to choose. And it's just like, honestly, the going back to what you're talking about, like how your the style of writing can cater to reluctant readers. I feel like not only adding that element of fun and engagement with the world that you're creating, but also then having it be like it's the hot new thing that everyone's talking about, and then going to that book and being like, oh, it is like accessible as well, is like it's a recipe for success kind of in a way, because it's just like not only were people like hyped to read it, but it's also not like okay, and now here is a 500-page novel where the text is so small that I can't read it with my readers. Like that's really cool.
Like it's more immersive, definitely
For
way more
sure.
immersive when you get to start reading that.
Yeah, and it's fun because it's also building up for the next thing, because with the publisher I have the next 2 books that are like mapped out, and so, or the Final Diadem and the one that follows it, and the one that follows it is also connected to the Final Diadem, which makes it connected to Solar Punk, so that it's all becoming like one thing. So it's also like dropping little hints to what's to come in the next, like all the dinosaur stuff is on purpose.
Which I'm like, I know we're going to get into it. Louis going to ask in just a moment, but Solar Punks, I got so invested.
Yeah.
And then the way I thought it was going to end, which I was like, oh, it's going to have, which spoiler alert, by the way, you know, go check it out on Hoopla, then come back.
I'm telling you, I read this in like about like an hour tops, and it's so good. And if you could pause this episode, you could go read it. It's on Hoopla. I highly recommend it.
Go ahead. We'll let you pause.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so anyway, so the ending, I was like, oh, it's going to be kind of bittersweet. And then all of a sudden, boom, if you want more, read this. I'm like, oh my God, I did not expect that.
Yeah. I was telling Rosanna the way that like the ebook was laid out for a moment. There's like that, like in a normal book, you'd be like, okay, that's the end of the story. And now this is like a few like things that they're doing. Like the publisher is saying like, oh yeah, go, if you're interested in this publisher, if you're interested in this author, like go read this. In the ebook, I read it, and it was at the very end of the book, and I was like, oh, what's going to happen next? And then it was like, would you like to read more? I'm like, did I run out of like my subscription? What's happening?
I love that so much.
Did BiblioTech cancel my card or something? I work here. Help.
But yeah, I mean, we already got into it, but talking about Solar Punks, whenever the project was kind of coming together, what kind of inspired the story and like the setting for you?
Yeah, no. So it's I had discovered solar punk as a genre because it's considered the antithesis to cyberpunk, being how everything is computer and like more like dystopian.
Yeah.
As to where solar punk, it's more utopian, like a more hopeful future. And so I had started studying it as a genre, and I was really interested in it. And then I'm the kind of person that will go into a YouTube rabbit hole, TikTok rabbit. I'm just sure y'all know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
I'm just like, oh my gosh, and feed me more information. And so I was learning a lot about it. And then I hung out with one of my friends, and out of nowhere, well, because we were talking about books, but out of nowhere, he's like, have you heard of solar punk? I was like, I'm literally like obsessing over it right now. Like this is like what I'm doing. And he's like, oh, that would be, I was like, I should write a book about this. And he was like, yeah, you should. And so I had the idea. I let it sit for months, and with the publisher, it wasn't a season where they were accepting pitches for like the next round of books that they would be publishing in the future. And so I just kind of like let the ideas kind of just, marinate.
Yeah.
And just let it become its own thing. And I wanted to do a little like approach solar punk a little bit differently than how I had seen it approached. So a lot of the time it's very much like forest, fairies in the forest, like kind of vibe, like Fern Gully, like where it's gorgeous and it's beautiful, but it's very it's kind of like that. And so I was like, well, there's more to nature than just the forest. And I was like, well, let me, an island. And so I grew up, you had mentioned the Rio Grande Valley. Down there we have South Padre Island. So like I remember, I think it was when I was a teenager, every weekend we were out at the island just all day, just enjoying it. I'm like, okay, let me go back to those moments of always being on the beach and always in the sand and the waters, and just kind of like let it become its own story from there.
Yeah. I've been familiar with the solar punk genre for a very long time and a huge fan. I'd say about 5 years ago, I went down the same rabbit hole, I'm almost positive. And it's always been like a very like beautifully like aesthetic, like a very aesthetically beautiful genre to me. But I hadn't really been able to engage with any stories that just like actually focused on like solar punk as like what would that actually mean for a society building itself upon like renewable energy and like that kind of basis of community. So getting to read your interpretation of it was really nice because, like, again, I've also seen a bunch of solar punk stuff set in like a very like foresty setting, but like I don't think I've ever seen it set on like an island and set like with like kind of a more beach sort of setting. And I feel like it really makes sense. And the way that you build the world around that concept is really, really creative. Like you get into like kind of like the weeds of like how things work and how people like maintain the society and stuff like that. And I think that you do such a good job with that. Like the imagery is super vivid.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool. Like, because when I first started reading it, I thought, like, oh, okay, this is going to be kind of, them scraping by, really like tapping into the world, which they do. They tap into the island's resources, but they are also incredibly like technologically advanced, which was just the mesh of those two worlds was amazing. And also I just love the name of the island itself, Isla Sola, like literally the island's by itself. It's in the name. So I really enjoyed that, but
I do not speak Spanish, so I did not know that. I was just like, oh, sol, like the sun. Okay. Okay.
You know what?
Now I understand.
Different interpretation.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, let's go. But yeah, it was just cool. It was just, and like you said, it was definitely more utopian. There were moments where I was like, oh God, this is going to get dark fast, isn't it? But it didn't. It remained pretty like hopeful throughout the book. So really did enjoy that.
Reading just like the description of the book of it being like this is a utopian society, and then like the truth behind it kind of gets unraveled. I was very much like okay, it's taking like a solar punk usual like utopia and kind of turning it into a dystopia. But no, I like that you kind of stuck with it is still like they are still living in harmony with nature. They are still doing what they can to like maintain their resources, and that is not a bad thing. The secret was just more that like they are by themselves and they were keeping that truth from everybody. And it kind of like, it set me a little bit more at ease because I was like, okay, at least it's not like then framing like, oh, this whole thing is like a sham. Like, no, like it's still, you understand why they did it.
Exactly.
And I think that's great.
Yeah, because I think that was an important conversation that I wanted to bring up too, is like with leadership, they were doing what they considered was right. And it wasn't necessarily harming anybody, but it was also a secret. It was also keeping a lot of people in the dark. So I think that's an interesting conversation to have, like where to draw the line between that.
Yeah, for sure.
And even with the one threat to their island, which was Mateo, they still kind of towards the end, they're like, let's take a step back. Let's do this rationally. Let's take a vote, Yeah. Venny over there, he might have a point.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just like the adults doing their thing. They're like, no, let's take into consideration everyone's points, which is nice because a lot of the times too, you also just have the adults doing their way. The teen stays frustrated, they end up more rebellious. So it was nice to see like, compromise, like, okay, yeah, they're still teen, but also they might have a point.
Yeah. There's also just like taking in like, not only like taking his point into account, but also just being like, hey, the way that you think, like you've got really good ideas and we want to put you in a position of leadership later on, just because like you seem to have like you seem to have like this kind of way of kind of like thinking around problems that other people don't. Like it was I like the way that the book ended a lot.
It was refreshing.
Yeah.
But like you mentioned earlier, your work, it often speaks to younger audiences. So what do you hope these readers take away from your books, your poetry?
Specifically with solar punks, I think just the idea to take better care of the world around us. When we kind of see that the two different worlds, like you had mentioned, like between Vinny and Mateo, where Mateo, there's a point where Vinny gives him food, and then it's like in a little baggie, and then once Mateo's done eating, he just kind of like tosses it, doesn't think about it. And then he's like, "What are you doing?" Like you don't just you don't just litter. He didn't say that, but that's his reaction.
Yeah.
And so just the same thing, like little. I think that everybody thinks that in order to make the world a better place, that they have to do this massive, huge thing, and start this huge organization. Be the in the book world, be the Katniss Everdeen. It's like no, just don't litter. Like
Simple
do
things,
just like simple lifestyle choices make the world a better place, and it doesn't have to. Obviously, like there's a moment in time to do bigger things, but just your moment to moment living in a place in a mindset that makes the world a better place.
Yeah. Or like if you take a walk through a park, like see some trash,
Yeah,
pick it up,
right,
little
yeah.
things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We don't really have a question about this, but I did want to just have a small little tangent. I'm a huge fan of poetry, and I love whenever people write poetry, write verse, that like whenever they move the words around on the page to like kind of indicate a feeling, indicate like an emotion or an action. I loved the way that you laid a lot of this out. It was very creative, like falling, like he was talking about like, when he was falling asleep, like he feels like that kind of like weird sensation where your body like jumps, you feel like you're falling. And the word was just spelled out completely like vertically to kind of get that motion. I also loved the when Mateo tells Venny to like start singing, and he's just like, and then I started singing, in my opinion, very well, perfect pitch. And just like having that as like a literal aside, like the words are aside from the main point. Like the way that the book was laid out was like super creative, and I loved seeing the way that you just like played with the space.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that's a really like that's one of the biggest parts with poetry is like learning how to play with the blank space and understanding that the blank space is just as important as the words on the page and being able to use them both like strategically.
Yeah. And that with also like the names of the poems, like kind of like even if it was like, okay, this is still the same scene, this is happening a second later from the last one, but like the heading will give you like, okay, this is the point, and then sometimes the heading will be just the first line of the poem and move on. Like it's really cool. I like it.
That's actually part of the high-low structure with headings, is to like sometimes if it's not just a statement by itself, that the heading, sometimes it'll be the first just to like create that momentum to keep that flow. So it worked.
Yeah, I gotta check more of these out then, because I like something about the way that this was written just kind of like scratched my brain. So like I think that I might be able to do more ebooks rather than audiobooks for stuff like this, just because it flows well. Yeah. So I know you were talking about the Final Diadem as an upcoming project, and then I'm assuming like so far unnamed next one. But if you wanted to share anything like that or any other projects with us or with our audience.
Yeah, the final diadem, it's available right now on NetGalley. So you can read it for free for the next couple months.
Oh, nice.
So definitely go do that. It's on there for e-reading, and that's the one where it follows the story of Ariel. He's in Houston, and he has trouble at home. His parents aren't super accepting of him being bi, and they're just like a lot more conservative, and he's not. And so he goes to summer camp to just get away from everything, Camp Juniper, which is out in the Big Bend area in West Texas. And out there, he meets 4 other campers who tell him they've been looking for him for centuries because they're all reincarnated superheroes from the planet Mars. And so he's like, what? And it becomes the process of him, like, understanding if that's real or not, or what's going on with it. That one publishes August the 1st of this year. And like I said, it's up on NetGalley right now. It's available for pre-order. If you follow me on social media, that's basically all I'm
Yeah.
posting right now. All sorts of stuff. I just got the physical copies in the mail like yesterday.
cool.
So I'm already like, okay, I need to do this TikTok trend, like the one with the baby where it's like singing, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I'm already, okay, I'll have the book be the baby. I'm singing. I'm going to just do all kinds of ridiculous things.
Oh, that's awesome. That's super cool. I'm glad that like the ball's about to get rolling, and then obviously I'm pretty sure we're gonna have to ask Haley, our acquisitions librarian, to like get right on.
Oh, for sure.
Bring that into our resources so people can check it out.
Yeah, awesome.
But yeah, that's
Which means everyone start typing up your letters why you think you should be at Camp Juniper this summer.
Right.
But real quick, before we move on to our next question, the author that you work with for the cover of your books, or like to do like the character imagery, I love them so much. I don't remember their name, but they've also done artwork for like other books that I like.
Oh, you're talking about Mars. Mars, the character art for the books?
Yeah.
Yes, Mars. They've done the character art for the last, which they did Solar Punks, and then they did the Final Diadem, and the next one that comes out after the Final Diadem.
That's so cool.
Yeah, they're different from the actual book cover artist. But yeah, Mars does the artwork for the characters. And it brings them to life.
Honestly,
the style that they create in is just amazing.
It's so good, and it just fits. So good.
what are the other? Do you remember the other books that they've worked on that you recognize them from?
So they worked with Aiden Thomas.
Oh,
quite a
okay.
bit. Their artwork.
Cemetery Boys.
Yes, Cemetery Boys.
The
oh God,
Celestial Monsters.
Yes, Celestial Monsters and Sunbearer Trials.
Yes.
I'm so ashamed. I freaking love those books too. But yeah, they did the artwork for those as well. So I'm just like, oh man, I love that. I love seeing like, that in the community, just
that's so
that
cool.
connection.
Yeah, they're really well known for doing the character art for queer writers. So it's exciting to see them bring like my characters to life.
Yeah, it's always good to like see your OCs in somebody else's style, but especially on like this scale where it's also like accompanying the book, and like they've also done other work. Like their style is great. I'd never heard of them before this, so like that's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's fun too because so for example with the Final Diadem, I was like, okay, the description, they're just black, black skin tight clothing with a star. And then they go in and they create like all of the little details and like around the hip, like all the other stuff that I would not have been able to, just because I'm not an illustrator. I'm not good with drawing or painting or anything like that. So, but that they're able to take an idea and take it even further and create something like even cooler. Like I love that.
So like when you tell them about the character, like they haven't read the book or anything. It's just like, hey, this is a character. Can you do this?
Right. You'll send the description like this is it. This is like the kind of personality or the skin tone, the hairstyle, and then you send photos for reference so they can get an idea, and then they just kind of build it from there.
It's so cool.
That's cool. Yeah, I would have thought like, okay, they read the book and then they're like, I have an idea. Like, no, they just go based off of like your. Oh man!
Like,
and then, because the book wasn't even completed at the time that it was the artwork was commissioned.
Okay.
So it's like this is what it is right now, and so
it's like criminal sketch artist but lower stakes.
Right? Yeah. No death.
All right,
that's so cool.
So to get into our last question, because we are a library, specifically BiblioTech, our catchphrase is, "What are you currently reading?" So.
Right. I just finished a day or two ago the On the Wings of La Noche by, I believe it's Vanessa. Vanessa's first name, I believe her last name is Lores. It's an amazing sapphic young adult novel about this girl who's a lechuza and her girlfriend dies. And in the story, lechuzas are almost like grim reapers where they take the spirit to the afterlife, and she doesn't want to take her girlfriend's spirit to the afterlife because of and the way that she passed away, it's like very like she was there when it happened. It's a tragic, it's so beautifully written. It's so good. So I just finished that one, and right now I'm reading, because along with my book, it's publishing on August 1st. They're also my publisher, they'll release 3 books on a publication date, and so it's mine and 2 other high-low verse novels. So I'm reading those right now on NetGalley. I just started it yesterday. I believe it's called it's like a tongue twister title, the wailing of the weeping women or something. It's something along those terms. But that's what I'm reading right now. The wailing of the I'm about like halfway through it. It's really interesting. It's
giving La Llorona vibes.
Well, yeah, it's like this cult has taken over this city, and their like cult is all through like singing and like noises and stuff. So that's how they can like control stuff supernaturally.
Ooh,
And-
that's cool.
Yeah, and so the main character is a girl who's wanting to use their ability to incorporate into her own music, so she can win a band contest, like a local band contest. It's really
that's
interesting. Yeah, and but the formatting, how you were mentioning the formatting, because it's high-low, so it's really, he did a lot of work with where the placement of the words are on the page, and so that's I'm really enjoying. Yeah,
Okay, gotta check that one
way.
out too.
Yeah.
What was the? I'm sorry. What was the name of the first one? The one that you
on
just
the wings
finished?
on the wings of La Noche.
I have to
That's-
check
yeah.
that out.
It's
Absolutely.
Sounds like it's gonna destroy me, but I have to.
Oh
Yeah.
man, 100%.
Yeah.
It had been on my TBR for a while, but what bumped it, because I'm doing with that author, me and her are doing a workshop together for the Latinx Kid Like Book Fest later on in the year. Yeah, and so I was like, okay, let me like read her book, because we're having part of our craft, our workshop is based off of our 2 books, Solar Punks and then hers. And so I wanted to know her books, so that I would
Yeah,
be able
of
to
course.
properly like comment on, as we're like working on our project together. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You said that you were going to be doing you said a workshop at what was the name of the?
So it's Latinx Kidlit Book Fest. It's annual. I think that they have other events now in person, but it traditionally had been an annual online, long, usually for weeks to a month, and they would have like every Latinx like writer, illustrator who's like publishing, and it's really well known. I was like super lucky. I got like
yeah,
accepted
yeah.
into it last year. And so, they have a lot of workshops. It's meant for anybody to watch, but it's also for classrooms. So they'll have like what me and Vanessa, the other author, we're doing a workshop based on emotions and emotions in writing. So our topic is how to show emotions in writing. So she'll take 2 examples from her story, and then I'll take 2 samples from mine, Solar Punks, and show like how we were showing emotions through that writing. And so they have that for classrooms, for public libraries, because they'll have even like little kids, like where they'll have an illustrator, a children's book illustrator, and they'll be like drawing, so that kids at home, they can like draw along.
Oh, that's
with it,
awesome.
different panels.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely. All right.
I feel like our listeners, if y'all want to check that out, y'all definitely should, because that sounds like such a good opportunity.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's all on YouTube. It just streams through their YouTube, and then whatever other
So for
channels.
free 99.
Yeah, exactly.
Free 99. You can't beat that. But with that said, that's going to end it for us here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you
Gume.
so much.
It's
for
been
having
a
me.
pleasure getting to know you and talking a bit more about your books and the way your whole process works.
I appreciate y'all
And
having me.
for our listeners and viewers, do you want to tell them where they could find you on social media?
Yeah, y'all can find me. I'm most active on Instagram. I have a TikTok, but I don't use it that often. It's more for my brain rot.
Understandable.
But yeah, find me on Instagram at tx.author, or if you look me up, Gume Laurel III. I swear I'm going to be the only one that pops up. So you can find me there.
Very nice. Very nice. Thank you.
All right. Well, that's going to end it from us here. Once again, thank you guys for tuning into this episode of BiblioTech On Air. I'm Rosanna,
I'm Lewis.
and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye.